I can't speak to the state law about this. If there's some state law limiting what we can do, the state law is the state law. As a matter of policy, I cannot conceive of a good economic reason why we have any limit on the number of beer and wine licenses, or for that matter, liquor licenses in town. This is exactly the kind of thing that the market will take care of. There will be about as many as people want to buy from, and as many varieties as people want variety from. And if it doesn't work, somebody will leave. If there's an opportunity, somebody will enter. So I would encourage the board to revisit and maybe remove any local limitation we have on the number of liquor licenses. If it's a state limitation, we can't do anything about that. But if we have the option, we should do it.
Hi, Jennifer Anderson, 94 North Plain Road. Can I ask why we were accepting new applications if the policy has yet to be changed? And we haven't, the previous board has said we're not accepting new applications. Now it's on the agenda to vote on new applications.
Right. If in fact the board does not change tonight the policy, we still are under a legal obligation to look at anyone who applies. And we have to, according to our lawyer, we have to judge each application on need and public good. Policy is only a guiding part of this.
Okay. And do you find any sort of conflict with being a member of the co-op and it ending today? Is there any previous conversations that have been had about this? Or, you know, you stood to benefit the last time we had a meeting. How come you didn't?
I was not aware that my membership in the co-op, I've also been a customer of yours, and you run a sale and I get the benefit of it. So I wasn't aware, and I started to check into it. But my actual financial ability to gain financially from being a co-op member was so close to zero, it didn't occur to me that
Right. It just shows that you have a stake in the game, that's all.
I don't have a stake in the game. I guess that's my point.
Okay.
Our legal counsel has.
Respectfully disagree.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Ed Domaney from Domaney's Liquors. We bought our business in 1973 when I was about 15. We've been here ever since. In our community, we regulate plastic bags, water bottles, fast food restaurants, food trucks, cigarettes. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. But we have regulations for a reason, be it environmental or more importantly, public safety. And public safety is what I'd like to talk about. It should be most highly considered tonight, especially in a town where we have 3-4 times, I don't know, more licenses than we need. Our products are regulated, and that's why we have controls and licenses. It's not like selling cheese or salami or anything else. My son has a bag of IDs we can show you. They're IDs we've confiscated. And more than just that, it's a bag of possible lives we've saved. And if any of you think that these are just kids looking for Fireball, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. We've had people trying to buy organic micro beers, macrobiotic wines, everything. And they've had very good fake IDs, but we've picked them out. Actually, Joe can tell you some interesting stories about that. As well, we realize that if we make a mistake, we could lose our entire business. Others would just shut down a small aisle or a table they had some specialty wines on, and they could continue to operate. But we're also motivated because we live in this community and we love this community, and we want to do the right thing. These two applicants that are in front of you tonight, they're good people. they're they're hardworking businesses, and they've done good things for the community. But you guys have to make a very, very hard decision tonight. And it's not going to be an easy decision you have to make. I hope you don't already have your minds made up. We need to take the personality out of this, and we need you to vote with your heads, not your hearts. And I'm not talking to my friends. I'm not talking to customers. I'm talking to you guys. Please, 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 vote with your heads. This is the most important decision as select people you're going to make. And especially if you have children in this area or grandchildren, you're going to take us in a different direction for our future for many years to come. Other select boards before you and other select boards after you are going to look at the decisions that you've made tonight. And hopefully these are going to be the decisions that will foster the safety of our community. Again, please, guys, please, don't let this influence the co-op, none of that. You should be thinking with your heads, please, for the safety of our children. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
I'm Joe Domaney. I live at 6 Abbey Hill, also Domaney's Liquors, obviously. These are not any surprise. Ray brought them in. These are our own. They're not Ray's, and a little bit less than maybe they have. But this is about 5 years worth of not confiscating, abandoned. These kids come in. They put anything and everything on the counter, and they're smart. Just the same way that kids, when I was in school, were smart. They pressured me beyond belief. I never once, ever gave in. Never. I find it very difficult to believe that even a 21-year-old working at the co-op, anywhere, a gas station, which inevitably could potentially get a license, I find it very difficult to believe that they would have the ability to stand strong and say, my job's not worth it, this community's not worth it, and you know what, I'm sorry, your friendship's not worth it. And all these IDs right here are potential deaths, every single one of them. And not just that, but they get behind a wheel and they end up swerving into another lane, and now you have more people who are just innocent. What's even more interesting is that at previous meetings we talked about this town being well served. Well, this town is pretty darn well served. Every single one of our stores has very, very vast selection of everything. Just our store alone, we have over 1,300 SKUs, not including multiple sizes. 1,300 SKUs of wine alone. That's not including all of the finest, hardest to get, most rare wines in the whole world in our fine wine room, which we have over 650 SKUs just in that room alone. And again, that's not including multiple sizes of bottles. Our beer selection, we have over 450 beers to choose from. Of those 450, there's over 80 types of cider and sour beers alone. That's a pretty big selection of a subcategory. If that doesn't prove that somebody is well served, and that's just in our one store, never mind the other 8 stores that are in this town. And what worries my dad and I mostly is not the competition. We're not concerned about that. We work very hard. We try very hard. We thank everybody who comes into our store. What scares us is this right here. This is really scary. And I was born and raised here, went to school with Kate. Kids are smart. They're not stupid. And when I was in school, what kids did, they went across the border. Alcohol is served in every place in New York that you can basically go. If they sell Slim Jim, they usually have beer. Kids knew that. And if there's a leap and a way for them to figure out where it's coming from, they'll figure it out. So if we do expand these licenses and there is a potential leak in our community, it will go through that school that we have, and it will be known throughout the entire school. And those kids will use that for all of their advantage. And, you know, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take a number. My name is Dave Ryle, 85 Christian Hill Road. I'd like to speak a little bit about the competition factor that was brought up earlier. I'm completely against increasing the number of liquor licenses in this town. It will increase the cost of living. It will hurt businesses in this town. It will decrease the number of jobs in this town, and it will further decrease the tax base in this town. Not to mention discourage investment. Increasing the number of alcohol licenses in this town will increase the cost of living. The argument that competition in the alcohol market drives prices down is not true. If a store is not large enough to purchase large volumes, the prices they pay for goods is higher, and the prices they pass on to customers is higher. That's why it's cheaper to go to any big box store than to your local mom and pop shop. That's a fact. Increasing the number of alcohol licenses will financially hurt 8 businesses in this town. The argument that increasing the number of liquor stores will increase the liquor market is not true. The alcohol market in this town is finite and is limited by the number of people, and that is the number of people is decreasing in this town. Add in 4 more alcohol licenses and sales at all those existing stores will all decrease. That's a fact. When you buy a bottle of biodynamic wine from one place, that means you're not going to buy that bottle for dinner where you usually shop somewhere else. It's a substitute purchase. It's not an additional purchase. You're not going to have 2 bottles of wine for dinner when you normally have 1. Increasing the number of alcohol licenses will decrease the number of jobs in this town. The number of jobs lost will depend on how much of the alcohol market is diverted to the new license holders. For example, let's say you have 4 new license holders in this town. They each generate $500,000, $2 million altogether. Okay, that means on average, the other 8 stores are losing $250,000 of gross revenue each, times 25% gross profit margin after paying for the cost of goods sold equals $62,500, which is 2 or 3 full-time good-paying jobs for each store, times 8 stores, is 16 to 24 jobs gone. Okay? The new places like the Co-op or the cheesemongers, they're not going to add those jobs back because they already have the staff sufficient enough to bring the additional sales. So those are jobs that are lost. Okay, and that leads right into increasing the number of alcohol licenses is going to erode our tax base even further. We have a huge problem in this town with a decreasing tax base. The number of people in this town has decreased 9% since 2000, from 7,531 people to 6,855. Meanwhile, the costs of running this town, as you all know, are going up. So there's fewer people to pay the bills in the town, which is why the cost of living in this town is going up at a rate greater than that of inflation. That's why we're losing people. They can't get ahead of here. Now we're going to potentially make the problem worse. Please don't do it. The only other thing I want to say is the 2 applications. It seems like we're putting the horse in front of the cart here, or the cart in front of the horse, and I don't even know if it's allowed for them to have a license, given the fact that both of the locations are within 500 feet of a church. And my question is, has the town opted in or opted out of the quota system? Because if we opted into the quota system, that quota system remains, and we have to abide by it. And if that's the case, has the town petitioned the legislature to change to get more licenses?
Legal counsel says we do have more licenses we can give.
Who's legal counsel? Your legal counsel?
Yes.
Hope they're right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Averdale. I'm Housatonic. I'm the owner of Averdale's Housatonic. A couple of things, that came up last time we talked seemed to be a very items of importance is, what do the license holders do to protect the public, and what do the current license holders do to serve the public? So I just, I gathered information from all the current license holders just to share some numbers with you. And some facts with you. On a weekly basis, we all educate our staff on proper ways to identify customers that are questionable age. We all purchase modern technological devices to do so, which we're not required to do. It's extra money that we all spend. We operate extensive closed-circuit TVs in our businesses and out of our businesses to catch the questionable people that park around the corner and walk up around and have a car full of minors and stuff like that, which we experience on a weekly basis. They try until they realize they can't get anything. We maintain communications with each other's, the stores. If I have someone that comes to my store that tried to use a fake ID, I know he's going to try the next store. We pick up the phone and we call, and vice versa. So we've created, a network amongst ourselves to how we all work together. And on top of that, with our closed-circuit TVs, we've all had situations to support the local law enforcement and state police with our camera systems, our technology, when we swiped an ID, the date and the time, when we swiped the credit card, the date and the time, what's on our videos is the date and time. And they've used it to prosecute cases and catch criminals. So those are some of the things where we go above and beyond and help to serve the public and protect the public. Now, as far as what we do to facilitate the public and serving them properly, Great Barrington has just under 7,000 residents. Not all of them are of legal drinking age, so the quantity, the volume, the number of people we serve is substantially less. Between all our current license holders in town, we have over 15,000 selections of wine. We have over 11,000 selections of liquor. Again, as Joey pointed out, not counting sizes. Those are just different selections. And we have approximately 6,700 beer selections. That equates to two wine selections for every resident of Great Barrington, 1.5 liquor selections for every resident, and just about one beer or cider selection for every resident. So I think we can say the community is well served. And as far as the specialty stuff, we all have the same ability to buy what's available for sale in the state. There's a publicized journal that we all can buy them. So if I have a customer that comes in and wants some special type of wine, special type of beer, I can get it for them. We feel we have the community well served. Our shops are very presentable for our customers, whether they're community people or visitors, which could change if we turn around and change the dynamics and have more licenses.
Time's almost up.
I'm sorry?
Your time's almost up.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quick. If I didn't stutter as much, it'd be a little quicker, right? So the current license holders, we have over $1 million in payroll, as the gentleman over there was speaking about payroll. We contribute generously to community programs. I guess I want to point out, over the years, the market has changed. The margins of beer, wine, and liquor and retail sales have continued to decrease. And by adding additional licenses, it has a potential to change in the landscape of the license holders. The current license holders are responsible. We go by the rules. If we can't make a living, we would be forced to sell our license, and the new buyers may not be as responsible as we are. Whether it's a big store, another independent owner that has no ties to the community, or whatever. So we could be creating a hazardous situation. So nothing against the current applications, as they pointed out. They're good people. They're part of our community. We all recognize that. But what I would ask the select board to do is take a look at the licenses without names or faces attached to them. Because the licenses could find their ways into hands that are a big superstore, a Walgreens, Wegmans or something like that, that would damage all of us. Or one of these, an independent person that would not care as much as we do for the community. So I'm done. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Mellion. I'm the Executive Director, General Counsel to the Massachusetts Package Stores Association. I'm also the administrator to the BAT course. The BAT course is the Beverage Alcohol Training course that probably a majority of the package stores across Massachusetts take for their employees. I administrate it, I wrote it, and I'm also the grader for that course, and it's done for a reason. I'm hoping I can have more than 3 minutes, or if anything, I can answer some of your questions, because I drove 3 hours to do that.
Yeah, you can go ahead. We usually give more time to people to speak.
To answer something that was raised at the very beginning here about Adam Smith Economics, without saying Adam Smith Economics, something that needs to be understood from the very start. Liquor licenses are a very different animal in that the Commerce Clause and the 21st Amendment, they coexist, but they're separate. And the three-tier system here in Massachusetts, based off of Chapter 138, was designed in accordance with the 21st Amendment, which was the amendment to the Constitution that allowed for alcoholic beverages to be purchased after Prohibition. And that comes to the reason why there is a quota system in Massachusetts to begin with. The quota system was intentional. The quota system was legislatively created by the Massachusetts legislature to prevent adulteration of product, to prevent underage drinking, and to prevent overconsumption. That was its legislative intent. It was intended by the legislature, and I recommend you look it up, it was intended by the legislature that the cost of liquor licenses be high, because it was intended to create a tier to prevent just anybody from entering the marketplace to sell alcohol, which was a lesson learned prior to Prohibition. That's what led to Prohibition, the Tide House system. The 21st Amendment, through the three-tier system that has come out of Chapter 138, has been a system that has been in place for the last 80 years to avoid the mistakes prior to Prohibition. And a system has developed here in Massachusetts as a result, with quotas in place. Now, on the issue of quotas here in Great Barrington, if you were strict adherence to the quota system, you would only have 2 Section 15 licensees. But there was a decision through an alternative path to add to the number of licensees. And you're now up to 7. You're already well over 300% higher than what the legislature would have allowed you to do. So then the question has to be asked of yourself, before you start giving out additional ones, knowing the intent of Chapter 138, knowing the intent of the three-tier system that we're all part of, is a public need, not a want, is a public need not being met? Therefore, should we be increasing the number of licenses? What the public wants and what the public needs are two different things, again, as we have learned with the 21st Amendment. So I just wanted to get that issue off the table first, that the quota system was intended for a purpose.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
How would one or a board figure out if a public need is being met? How would you assess that? Because I do know that there are towns that have gone to lengths to go beyond their quota and have deemed themselves in need of more. So how did they do that? How would a town do that?
It's a great question. So on that issue, what some towns have done is they've partnered with their Board of Health They've gotten the statistical information that they've needed to make proper decisions. They've run a study. You can work with your local community college, you could work with your local university to run a study to demonstrate whether there is a public need or not, and then base a legislative decision off of that. That has been done in the past in other communities to, again, show, separate from desire, an actual statistical public need. Something else worth noting is that in a system right now where there are 7 licensees, it's my understanding that potentially a couple of those licenses are up for sale. So another question to be asked of this board before they make a decision issuing out licenses is there a non-legislative means for achieving the same ends without having to increase the number of licenses? Because I think you're going to have a serious concern here where you've got 4 licenses on the shelf that you're going to issue out and potentially issue out 2 of them today. How are you going to stop a convenience store with an ownership in New York or an ownership in Texas or in Boston from getting the other 2? How are you going to be able to stop? Because
don't they come before our board first?
But what due process argument are you going to have if you just issued it out to 2 people in the town? It's just something that you might want to be considering.
Yeah.
And another question that I think this board is going to have to think about before it starts issuing out licenses is, how are you going to contain these licenses once they're issued out? Because you really don't have much say in a transfer of license. So you can have a public hearing, but unless you have something to demonstrate that the person intends to do ill with that license, you really don't have much means of stopping it. So once these licenses get issued out, they're out.
Right, so why would there be difference for the 2 or the 4 that we can give out versus the ones that are already out there? In other words, you said there were 2 for sale.
Right.
First of all, maybe we should say they can't sell them, we're going to attrition
You
our
can't
way
stop them
down.
from selling them.
We're going to attrition our way down. I believe that was
But you can't stop somebody from selling their license. That's a violation of their due process. That's a violation of their Fifth Amendment right.
But that's part of the same policy we're discussing tonight. Right, the second part of the policy was to
reduce the number of licenses to this date.
Right. Not to let any more and then reduce them as they go.
So you've got got licenses on the shelf that have been dormant since 1983?
Yes.
Or 1987, 1983? And a question on the table potentially is what you want to do with those licenses. Do you want to hand them out, or do you want to?
Right, but the policy we're talking about right now also includes reducing the number of licenses naturally as they go out. So presumably by not approving transfers of them until it's down to the 2.
But that would be how do you intend to do that?
I don't, but I'm saying
because,
that's what you're saying.
But my point that I'm trying to make here is that how do you intend to reduce the number of licenses that are currently out there, because that's taking a property right away from somebody. They currently have that property right. It's a transferable license.
So the policy is invalid, you're saying. The policy we're discussing.
I'm talking straight from the Constitution.
Right. Okay, so right. Thank
you.
Right, no, that's the policy.
You can't take right, but what I'm saying is constitutionally, you can't take that right away from that individual.
I agree with you. Okay.
So that's why I'm saying once you open up Pandora's box, it's open,
right?
And you might as well release the other 2 licenses, because you're not going to be able to prevent those from going out once you release these licenses. So now you're going to go from 7 to 11. And a concern that you're potentially going to have, and I've seen this in Chelsea, I've seen this in Lawrence, I've seen it in Fall River, I've seen it in Swansea, Massachusetts. Once they go out, you can't bring them back in. And you can't control who's going to get that license and what they're going to do. All that you can control is whether you can issue, if that person can issue the license out again to get it renewed, but then they can just sell it to somebody else. And I then come back to the argument that I raised previously, which is, if you got 7 and you have an existing Adam Smith marketplace, then let the marketplace play out as it is currently structured, and let somebody buy one of those existing licenses, as happens in Fall River, as happens in Westboro. you're not talking about $1 million for a license here. It's not Boston. You're not talking about $300,000 for a license either.
You're talking $750,000. That's one of the licenses.
That's because somebody's trying to sell their store.
Right.
They're not selling the license.
So then these licenses aren't necessarily for sale. It's this business that's for sale and an open business. So we don't have two licenses for sale. We have two full businesses for
But as a
sale.
board, that's not your job to make the decisions for others. It's for the marketplace to make its determination, as somebody testified earlier.
Right.
That's not your
On a-
role.
On a need basis.
So I just wanted to raise these issues because, again, you've got a quota system that was created intentionally. You're already way above what the quota system says is what Great Barrington should have. The quota system was designed to prevent overconsumption, underage drinking, and adulteration of product. It was also intended to create money for the state.
Yeah, you might know more about this.
Yes.
The quota system is based on each individual town, so the town of Great Barrington has a population that gets so many.
The quota is one license per 5,000 residents.
So if there are 7 towns around us with no business district and no liquor stores, that doesn't go into our quota?
That has nothing to do with
If
it.
we get 10,000 visitors on a weekend?
That has nothing to do with it.
Okay. Because, if the quota system is correct, then 2 is the right number, and there's no way 7 would be in business, but
Right.
7 are in business.
Right.
So the quota system clearly is,
And clearly,
It's a guide.
because this is a tourism area, somebody along the line thought of increasing the number of licenses.
Right. Okay.
Understood. But the question is, does the existing, it's a question for you all to answer for yourselves, does the existing structure fulfill the public need?
1 minute. Bobby, I've given him more time.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I just wanted to, again, raise these issues. And also just on the issue of the beverage alcohol training, something that I included in your packages that I provided for you, along with the testimony, I provided for you information on beverage alcohol training. It is recommended that a municipality mandate beverage alcohol training for anybody serving alcohol. As the administrator, the instructor, and the person who wrote the course, I can tell you with certainty that what was said earlier tonight is absolutely true. IDs are getting more sophisticated every day. And the problem that you have is, yes, there's ID checking software out there right now. I can name the companies that do it. The problem that you have is that when you swipe the ID, you see the barcodes behind it, it's going to come out good. The new IDs that are coming out that are made in China or are made in California, they come out perfectly. They come out positive. They come out as if they're a good ID. Hence the reason why servers of alcohol are trained, because under Chapter 138, Section 69, if they make a mistake, it's not good enough. They are mandated by law to ensure that no one under 21 is served. So not only do they do the swipe, they then test the individual, or at least they should. They test the individual by, and we teach the process in this course, by asking them questions. They also test to make sure that somebody's not intoxicated when they're selling to them. And the problem that we have today is, what is intoxicated? Because it can be intoxicated through alcohol, it can be intoxicated from cannabis, it can be intoxication through taking pills. So a store clerk is trained to identify somebody who is intoxicated, because state law specifically mandates that no one who is intoxicated, not by alcohol, but anything, can be served alcohol. Otherwise, they could be potentially losing their license for a minimum of 3 days, up to a week, and potentially suspension of license altogether. And the last thing is what was said earlier too about the stresses to the industry. It's absolutely true. If anybody thinks that they're going to get into the alcohol business to make money today, I hate to say it, you're getting into a very tough industry, because this year revenues have been flat for a majority of store owners. Most who reside in communities that have medical marijuana are actually seeing a decline in revenues between 5 and 15%. In addition to this, they're taking hits from breweries who are going for Section 15 licenses. I fought that off successfully this year in the state legislature, but I can assure you that the breweries are going to be trying to get Section 15 licenses for next year. We also fought off the manufacturers who are trying to sell from their bases. I fought off a bill introduced by Sam Adams this year. We were successful this time. I don't know if I'm going to be successful next time. The point is that the industry is being stressed. Less people are drinking today. You've got a declining population here where it was, I believe, 7,105 in 2010, and now you're around 6,855 as of 2017. Less people are drinking alcohol today because the youth are no longer picking alcohol as the substance of choice for recreation. They're picking cannabis. So it's a declining industry in addition to, and the revenues are not what they were. And that goes to the argument that was raised earlier, which is that there is an incentive these days for people to sell their licenses. 350 licenses were sold in 2018 because businesses are getting out, because they can't compete against Total Wine, they can't compete against direct shipping from out of state, they can't compete against cannabis that's taking from 6 to 15% of their sales. So I just wanted to share all this with you because it's not so easy. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you just clarify the 500 feet from a church that Dave brought up? Is that?
I don't know if that's a local ordinance or whether that's a state ordinance.
Okay, you can't speak whether or not it's a state
Yeah,
ordinance.
that could be something that, I know that, for example, Boston has an ordinance in place that's 1,000 feet. So that might be something in your local ordinances. I don't know the answer to that question. It's not necessarily in the state regs.
Okay.
From the state regs, I can definitely speak, and that's not necessarily in the state regs.
Our town does require TIPS training, which is above what the state requires.
So TIPS.
So I would love for you to, I mean, are there other things that, I mean, could we require all of them to have scanning IDs? I guess there was some question as to what we can require beyond what the state is required in a municipality.
Let me distinguish TIPS.
We don't require
Yeah.
What?
We don't require that.
The town does. For serving, not
cigarette.
for cigarette. Oh, I'm sorry. When I asked Helen earlier, I thought we were specifically talking about.
But let me distinguish on TIPS.
I guess that's what I'm wondering. Now that we don't need to distinguish, can we require our license holders to go beyond what the state is requiring in terms of safety?
So, what you do as a licensing board, if the Board of Selectmen is the actual licensing authority, then what you can do is you can, as long as it's for everybody, not for, you can put in conditions, when people renew their licenses, you can put in conditions on those licenses such as, you must take training. Let me distinguish TIPS training for you. TIPS training is a training program for serving alcohol beverages that's put out by the restaurant industry.
Okay.
It is a very different training course than what is put out for Section 15 licensees because the laws for Section 15 licensees are different than Section 12 licenses. So TIPS is great. It's a national course. People can do it online and get it done at 2 o'clock in the morning, but it's not going to train them for Chapter 138
That makes sense.
for Section 15 licensing.
Any other board questions?
I'd just like to say one thing.
So you need to go to the microphone.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you
if you have
very
any
much.
questions,
We
no.
will.
Thank you.
Right, come on.
Yeah, that's good. My name is Ray Murray from Plus Package. The one question I wanted to answer was that you were talking about the church with 500 feet, right? Back when I built my store up there at the Ely block up there, originally I was going to build it where Bikes and Blades was. And one of the things was you had to be 500 feet from a church or a school at that time. And the synagogue was not too happy about it. And I didn't want to try and build somewhere where someone wasn't happy in your backyard, so I ended up buying the property at the road, you know what I'm saying? And but that's the way it was back then, and I don't think it was changed since then. So I think that policy is still in effect right here. And another thing, listening to the rest of the people talking about the things with the package stores, is that one thing with a package store is that it's mainly for people for 21. And I've always maintained this here, is that when you take grocery stores and stuff that have this here, and we fought this back when the package store had this thing, they spent over $10 million on it. They won the award when it was, they wanted more licenses, the big boxes did, is that when they wanted to put licenses almost on every corner, when you got young children that are walking into stores that are available, it's very difficult today to tell the age of young kids. You know, they're more mature than you think they are. And it's very difficult, but when a liquor store, they have to be 21, and it's more up to the age, even though you can be fooled very easily. That's why we spend thousands of dollars to put these machines in and cameras, and have colleges that give us papers that show who the kids are that are 21 and work with people and work with other liquor stores and stuff to be more controllable. And, you know, we don't want to be shut down for the time. We work with the police department, work with everything as possible. And that's one of the big factors right there. When you don't, and you have kids that are running around in your store and stuff, and you got things on the shelf, that's very difficult. And that's how we beat it that time, that they didn't issue licenses in every corner. They made it, because that time there's one, you're allowed to own one per town, 2 per city, and now there's more licenses for the whole state. It was for that particular reason. And I think when the gentleman just talked to you, I think what he's telling you is very important. What he's trying to tell you, you've got to make a decision on this here. And we're not trying to stop someone from making money to put alcohol in, but you know, I think he's got a very nice business the gentleman's starting, and these people that have. But how much of an importance is that bottle of wine or that bottle of beer going to make to his business? That is, his main business is groceries. I don't sell groceries. I just sell beer, wine, and liquor. That's my business. His business is groceries. I don't sell groceries. You know, that's what you got to look at. That's his main business. That's what he concentrates on. That's what he builds it out on. And that's what you really got to look at. It isn't like he's going to make millions on his liquor. He's just putting in something that's going to be there. He's not going to build something that's going to be an enormous thing. Is he going to separate it from something? He's going to put another wall up to say that they can't come over there? He's not really trying to build something out of it. So, you know, you really think about that. That, you know, you're talking just because it's alcohol. And eventually, like you say, if you're not careful, you might shoot yourself in the foot on the amount of licenses you put out here, that if you put too many licenses out, and some big box grabs it, like, you know, like Price Chopper, or someone else comes in this town, or Big Y or something like that, and takes it away from someone else that buys it, then you got some big business in there that have it, or someone comes from out of town. And a lot of us people that got our life savings in here are going to go down the tubes. You know, that's going to hurt us. That all our life we put all our life savings and everything else in there, and we lose everything we have that we try to build it up for our kids and everything else to be there, you know? And it's very difficult, and that's what's going to hurt.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Anyone else?
Attorney Dennis Egan, I'm an attorney with the law firm Cohen, Kittyville, Sente and Cook. I'm here this evening on behalf of Berkshire Co-op Market, but I'm not up here now to argue for or against whether you should grant them a license. I just want to clarify a few things. I don't meet the quota of driving 3 hours, and I'm not going to ask for more time. But I do want to clarify some points that were made. First and foremost, the Massachusetts Appeals Court has made clear time and again that holding a liquor license, no matter the type, Section 12, Section 15, is not a right. It's a special privilege. Liquor licenses are renewed on an annual basis, and any violation of a liquor license regulation subjects the alleged violator to a meeting before this board and a meeting down in Boston before the ABCC. So the idea that you can't take somebody's license away is a fallacy. Counsel's an expert, I have no doubt. He's also a lobbyist, paid on behalf of an industry, and he's here with an agenda, and I don't blame him. I'm here too. I'm here on behalf of Co-op Market. I get paid for that. But I'm up here to clarify that point. It's not a right, it's a privilege, and the court, Massachusetts Appeals Court, has said that time and again. The other piece is on the 500 feet. The regulations say that if you're applying for a new license, you've got to notify abutters within 300 feet and any church, religious place of worship, or school within 500 feet. There's not a prohibition on holding a license within that spatial restriction. It is simply that they have to get a notice and have an opportunity to be heard. That's the due process rights that council is talking about. And as far as the TIP certification versus some other Section 15 requirements, at least with respect, I haven't heard anybody yet make a proposal to get a license. This board has the right to choose whether they want to uphold the policy they have or not. If they choose to uphold it, then folks will make their case to receive it, and this board will vote yea or nay. But to suggest that somebody who's going to be holding a license for the first time is less qualified, it's not in the regs. You won't find it in case law or the regs. And to suggest that someone new to the industry is not going to be properly certified presupposes things that aren't in the record. And so those were the points of clarification. It's not a right, it's a privilege. 500 feet means that religious organization or school needs to get notice and an opportunity to be heard. And we're obviously hoping that the board votes in favor of revisiting the policy, and if it does, we'll be available and present to argue in favor of the co-op market. Thank you.
Anyone else? Good.
Good evening. My name is Nick Arienti, attorney with Hellman Sheridan Arienti here in Great Barrington, and I am speaking on behalf of one of the applicants, Rubiners, Grocers and Cheesemongers tonight. Just wanted to point out very briefly just a couple of statements. The gentleman from the package store lobby, I'm sorry I did not write down your name. I wanted to clarify. It sounded to me like he was saying that your job tonight, or one of your jobs tonight, was to interpret or reinterpret the statute and come up with a new interpretation or a different interpretation tonight. I don't think that's what your job is. That has already happened in the town of Great Barrington. There has already been a legislative amendment some time ago to expand the number of allotted or allowable licenses. That legislative amendment is on the books. You're not being asked to reinterpret the statute. You're being asked to look at the policy that was created in 2003 to, do just that, create a policy for you to make an additional determination prior to and in concert with any new applications as they come before you. So obviously you'll do that based on whatever your discussion is, whether there are factors which may be relevant that have changed the circumstances, the town, the economics, the makeup, whether or not at this point in time it's appropriate to reconsider and potentially expand the number of allowable licenses under wine and malt only, Section 15, which has already been amended. As you already know, you have up to 5. One's been issued, so 5 are permissible by statute already. You're just revisiting this policy. It's within your rights to revisit that policy and not feel like you're reinterpreting the statute on behalf of the town. Of course, that'll be based on local conditions. And that's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luke Sherrill. I'm here with the Berkshire Food Co-op. I'm the interim general manager. I just want to clarify a few things and put it in context what we're trying to do at the co-op. We are not here to try to put out these good folks that have been here doing this. We do represent 3,000 member owners that are.
Can you hang on just a second, Steve?
That are owners.
We're talking about the policy right now, not the liquor license. So I just want to make sure that your comments are directed towards the policy, not your application.
Too soon. Well, everybody else was here speaking to whatever they wanted to speak to, right?
Everything else I've heard tonight so far.
We are discussing the policy. We will be discussing the application. You can continue as long as it's
So let me
on the
speak to a
policy.
couple points that were made tonight,
Yeah,
okay?
please.
Please, thank you. We're not a total wine store. We're serving like a niche market. One of the things that they brought up was the safety, and I want to point out the fact that if he has a good program, we'll hire him to teach our cashiers how to do that properly. We have no problem following any regulations that the city would propose for us to make sure our cashiers and everybody is trained properly. That is not our intent, so we would definitely do that. We're gonna check those IDs. Just for example, I just came from Ann Arbor, Michigan, which has a massive student population, and I was at the co-op there, and they never had any problems with fake IDs and not being able to stop the sale of liquor. And they didn't have any problems with children coming in. We had more problems with people trying to pilferage it, and they're going to have the same problems at their store. So I just want to speak to that and clarify that. We're not going to sell. We only have 9 feet of wine and 7 feet of beer. So we're really just serving our customers with beer and wine for dinner. We're not trying to make a massive section here. So I just want to speak to that to these folks here. So we will institute the best practices in safety and make sure that we're following all the rules and policies that are put forth by the state and by the city. And we'll go above and beyond those regulations. I don't think I have anything else to say until later.
Perfect,
So
thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Seitz. I live at 48 Grove Street in Great Barrington. I'm a member of the Co-op Board of Directors. I serve as the treasurer, and formerly I served as president of the board. And I'd like to talk to 3 of the issues that were raised this evening: need, competition, and safety. First, safety. I just want to say that you will not find an organization more committed to safety than the co-op.
Respectfully, this is not about the co-op.
As I said, I'm speaking to 3 issues that were raised by other people testifying on the policy, and those 3 issues are need, competition, and safety. In terms of safety, I just want to mention that the co-op has, over the past 5 years, provided numerous trainings in Safe Serve, important aspect of food safety, and we would absolutely see ourselves as wanting to embrace the best practices in the safe sale of liquor. In terms of need, and it was mentioned that one of the factors that the board will consider is the need for issuing additional licenses. There are several aspects that show a need for our community. The first is the co-op customer base. We draw from a radius of 25 miles, so we're not only drawing from Great Barrington. In addition, I have talked to customers who have come as far away as the Connecticut Sound Coast. So we draw on a very wide catchment area, and one of the things that we are often asked for by our customers is that we be more of a one-stop shop, and that includes things that we've gotten back in surveys that said it'd be helpful for us to be able to pick up wine and beer.
Please sit down, I'll be asked to leave.
Wine and beer, because people come in, they may be buying their food for dinner, a picnic, or whatever, and simply we can serve our customers better. But beyond that, it also serves the co-op's success to be a one-stop shop. And you probably all have noticed that the co-op is expanding. This serves our community. We currently employ 60 people. We will be expanding that to 75 people. We spend over $2 billion in direct wages. We are a major driver in this community. So even something like this, which will not be a major aspect of our business, will support our success, and in turn that supports the success of our community. Finally, I just want to say about competition. I appreciate that the liquor industry or the liquor businesses in this town do face intense competition, and it is not our idea that we would go in any way head-to-head in terms of competition. We will have a very small section. It will be carefully curated, looking at more expensive wines and beers, typically organic, biodynamic, perhaps locally produced. And again, this is so that we can provide a service to our customers, and some of whom come from very far away. The other thing I just want to say is that there really is no other industry that is protected. The grocery industry has probably the tightest profit margin of any business. We typically operate in the area of about 1%. We give away a great deal of services. I'll talk about that if this policy is changed in the next agenda item. But just to say that we too have to deal with competition. No one can stop another grocery store from operating. And also, you may have noticed that while co-ops early on talked about local organic produce and new types of products, kefir, you name it, these things have been embraced widely. So there's nothing that protects the co-op from competition.
Your time.
Great. And just to finish, so our idea is not that we're going to go head-to-head, but just add one more thing that will help our business and our business success in turn helps the community.
Okay, so it's the board now. Discussion and a motion, and we need to move this along.
We just want to start with a motion.
If you'd like to make a motion, I'll be fine.
But I just want to discussion. I'd like to move that we. Before I make a motion, sorry, it's just that I'm reading the minutes of the meeting November 17th, 2003, which was a meeting held a few days after the Berkeley Fair memo you read.
Right.
Where the board expresses the wish to freeze the number of, to take a formal action to freeze the number of licenses that are out there, and that passes. And then they make a motion which passes to ask the town manager to look into what the legislature can do. 4 months later, at a special town meeting, a motion was proposed to do just that, to limit, under home rule amendment, to limit the number of licenses to what was currently out there. That motion failed at town meeting, so the town's legislative body turned down what was their policy. 3 months later, at a regular town meeting, the identical motion was brought forward, this time apparently to a secret ballot, and it was voted down almost 4-1. So I'm not sure we actually have a policy. I'm not sure what.
Well, I think beside that, I mean, we've spoken to legal counsel on multiple occasions, and every time he's gotten back saying that if our policy was to be challenged, it most likely would fail. So I think although it has not been challenged in 14 years or 15 years since it's been put in place, I think if we want to continue to have a policy that either acts in the same manner, we need to rework it, revisit it in a way that protects in a way that is more legally binding, because there is nothing about this that really could stand if challenged.
As I understood today talking to town council, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this serves as guidance for the board. We would have to accept an application if anyone brought one to us, as they have tonight, and we have to decide on each application based on their merit, based on need and public good. And we can't just go by and say we have a policy and we're going to turn it down because we have a policy, because he feels that would not stand up in court.
So do we need to even continue this conversation and move to the policy?
I think the motion I want to make is that we accept the applications that have been put to us and we consider them on their merits, and make decisions based on that. In other words, what I'm saying is, whatever this is, we are going to look at the applications in front of us.
Well, I think we have to do that either way.
Right.
I think since we've taken an hour of our time, it would be nice if we can do away with policy, it's our policy, we can strike our policy, or we can change our policy, but to ignore our policy seems a little foolhardy. To
Okay,
me.
I guess.
To me, but the rest of the board may not feel that way.
It looks to me like town meeting already ignored our policy, or overrode our policy on 2 different votes. But let me make the motion then that we rescind this policy of setting a limit lower than the state's limit.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.